Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Future is Bilingual podcast. Today, I'm very excited. I'm bringing you an interview with Tanner. So, Tanner, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tanner. I am a college student from Tennessee. My major is music business, if you're curious, but I do have a minor in Japanese. So that's kind of what sparked my languages.
Wait, music business is one major?
Yeah, it is. It's
Oh,
specifically recording industry is what it is, but it's specifically the music business side of like managing, touring, all that stuff, as opposed to like
play.
production.
Right. Very interesting. I mean, of course, that needs to be a major, but I've never thought about that. It's
Yeah.
something you could go to college and study. So, very cool. And so, tell us a little bit about your language learning journey, because I know there's different languages thrown in
Oh,
there.
yeah. Oh, yeah. It's very weird and sporadic. So it really kind of started when I was, what, 5, 6, when I first started being homeschooled. I just went through like maybe a year of homeschool and then I started public school.
Mhm.
So then my mom and like everyone that was doing the homeschool curriculum or whatever kind of added in Spanish into some of our stuff to do. Just did just some basic Spanish like counting colors, whatever. That
Yeah.
just kind of got my interest started in a language.
Mhm.
So then fast forward a little further into high school and I started taking Spanish in high school, and then that kind of really opened up the whole language thing to me. So I started learning like a couple other romance languages. Like I did do Spanish, then Italian just a little bit, and then just randomly thrown in there, I started learning a little bit of Hawaiian for some reason. I don't know
Wow.
why, but it was entertaining.
Yeah, it's fun.
I
I've
couldn't
I've
tell
done
you
that
any of
too.
it
I've
now.
dabbled on Duolingo and other places where
Mhm.
something comes up and you're like, "Ooh, let me learn this
Right.
alphabet," or some
Right.
random thing will pop up.
Yeah,
Hawaiian, that's
definitely.
really cool. I think they do have that on Duolingo, actually.
They
I've
do.
seen it. Yes. So if anyone's interested, I mean, that's on my bucket list. I would love to
There
go to
you go.
Hawaii. So once I get that
Oh,
ticket, I'll be doing all the lessons.
there we go. We just need to take a vacation and just learn it.
That's what we need.
Yeah. So then after Hawaiian, I really took a break. And then the pandemic hit when I was in high school, actually.
Oh my gosh.
And
You've just dated yourself and I feel very
I
old
know,
now.
I know,
It's okay.
I know. And then over the pandemic, that's when I found Japanese, and that's where everything just kind of spiraled from there.
Right. Where did you stumble upon Japanese? How?
So it's a little weird story that also kind of dates me a little bit. Um,
Date you
as a
in a young
kid,
way, not date you in the
uh,
way dates me
fair
and
enough. So really, when I was a kid, I started watching Power Rangers,
uh-huh.
and I was just obsessed with it, whatever. And I found out that Power Rangers is originally from Japan, and
I
I
didn't
just
know
went down
that.
a rabbit hole. Yeah,
Okay. I never knew
I
that.
just went down a rabbit hole, and I'm like, I love this so much. And I watched the originals in Japanese, and then I'm like, I love this language and I want to learn it. So then that's how all of that started. A lot of people get it from anime. No, I got it from Power Rangers for some reason.
Very cool. I mean, I wonder how many people who study Japanese did come in through like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or like some other
Right.
anime or something. Because yeah, the cultural production is, it's really fascinating. And I know there's so many good movies and just people who are interested in Japanese, that's kind of like a whole industry. Same with K-pop or
Oh,
K-drama,
yeah.
right? If you're doing Korean, like that's a whole thing that people become obsessed with, rightfully so. I'm all for the J-pop, K-pop, the C-pop, all those. But yeah, you get like sucked into this world, right? And like,
Oh, yeah.
but you can learn so much culture. I don't know Power Rangers if that was, culturally educational, but like I think once you start delving into other just movies in general, right? Like if you're watching shows and movies, even if it's this fantasy world, like there's still cultural things that I will probably come up. I'm not a huge anime watcher. I've done a tiny bit, but for certain, like, the K dramas, for example, like you get a lot of culture when you're watching a show like that. And then the certain words I know people have said, like, I don't really speak this language, but like I can kind of understand because I've heard certain words said so much, like in a K-drama or an anime show, like, yeah, I don't speak Japanese, but like I know these words, they've come up a lot. Did you find that that happened because you were so into that?
A little bit actually. So that was kind of my intro into Japanese, like in Japanese it's called Super Sentai and Kamen Rider. That was kind of my intro into it, and then as I was watching it and studying the language at the same time, I saw a lot of parallels, and I'm like, oh, when they would say something, I'd be like, oh, I know what that means, that's so cool, and I would geek out for a minute and then
Yeah,
resume what I was doing. But
I
it
love
was
that.
so cool
Mhm.
just to see like some of the connections that I started making in the beginning from all of this. And then I'm also a huge K-pop fan,
Mhm.
so there's some
Touched on
connections in
something there.
there.
Yeah.
hmm there's some connections in there with learning Korean also.
Mhm. Yeah, it just that sparks an interest, which I think is so cool, right? Like we have so much at our fingertips now. I'm going to date myself. The World Wide Web was like coming into being, in like the 90s and like the 2000s when I was in high school. And like it wasn't as easy, right? It wasn't as like accessible to just find Japanese media or like find, songs in Korean. But I think like nowadays, like I can just imagine like what it's going to be like for my kids who are, almost 6 and 4. Like, what are they going to stumble upon and become fascinated with? Because it's just much easier. The world is like smaller and smaller every year. It's just more accessible. Everything's kind of the algorithm. I mean, I hate it and I love it, right? Because you click on one K-pop song and like they send you a million others and like, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's how I went down so many rabbit holes.
Right. I mean, that's why the rabbit hole is a thing now, right? Because the
Right,
algorithm is throwing things at you where you just can't stop. And the Netflix continues to play, they continue to play the next episode without you having to do anything. And
right.
technology is for and against us in that, it's a good thing, but it's like, oh my God, you need to stop at some point.
Right.
Oh, so great. So did you know going into the university, into college, that you wanted to minor in Japanese, or was it like discovery?
Well, it kind of switched.
Mm.
So I've changed my major and my minors uh all, well, really just once, but I've changed them all. So I really started out like my first year of college as music education
Oh.
and Japanese major. So I was a double major for a little while.
Mhm.
And then I just kind of realized that that was just a little too much for me and I had other priorities at the moment.
Double
So
major
I
is
just,
no joke. Yeah.
oh yeah, I switched Japanese down to a minor and then I switched to music business. So it really just kind of worked out for the better. And also, Japan is the second largest music industry other than the US, which is perfect for me because I
Yeah.
want to go over there and work.
There you
So,
go. Yeah, and you could have a foot in both, right? And you have
oh yeah.
language knowledge in both and the cultural knowledge and actually I'm curious because how much culture is taught? Like how are your classes taught? Um I took French and Spanish at university and 1 semester or 1 year of Arabic. But I can only like imagine like how is it to minor in a language that has this different alphabet and has such a different culture? And I'm just thinking of the little amounts of Japanese I know, like the honorific system. Like how do you I've heard people say like, it's hard to grasp that. Like a native will try and explain to you, but like you still like you're not sure. It's not just the same as like Spanish, like tu and usted, and like there's like 3 levels in Korean, maybe Japanese as well. Like it's much more subtle and like complicated. Like I feel like there's like multiple ways of saying, and I don't know. Can you like touch on that? Because I am also interested in Japanese. I don't study it. I dabble more because it's just
hmm
so fascinating. But I'm wondering how they tackle that like at the university level.
Yeah, of course.
Because most people
Um,
come in without knowing any. Like are you starting at
right.
level 1? Because it's not like
So,
Spanish. Spanish you'd start, midway or something because they're assuming you've had some in high school. I feel like it's
right.
just a different animal, right?
Yeah, it is. Japanese, like especially in Tennessee, is very like it's not widely spoken
Mm.
at all. I hear a lot of Spanish around me, so like I have a little bit of a panic when I'm just like I picked the wrong language, but
Oh,
then no.
you can
There's always time to learn Spanish. I'll do that
yes.
later.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
take the advantage of the university level. I feel like that's a great time to do that. The
Yeah,
language is harder
definitely.
to find, right? Even though it
Yeah.
seems counterproductive, but you can pick
Oh
it.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. So when I'm in university, I started at the very beginning. Our 1010 level class was
Mhm.
just very basic, but also I had been working with an italki tutor for about 8, 9 months
Mm,
beforehand. So I had already had the basics kind of.
yeah.
I, of course, wanted to start at the beginning of the class just so I could solidify my basics. So it just didn't move on and I was confused. So I started at the bottom and that's where we learned hiragana and katakana and a little bit of basic kanji.
Mm,
And it really didn't take that long to get some of those basics in
mhm.
because university is fairly fast paced.
Yeah, true.
And I loved how my teacher did it. Like shout out to my sensei because I love her with my whole heart. Um, so she like it was a flipped class is what it was
Yep.
called, where you would do a lot of the stuff outside of class and then you would solidify it when you come into class, which works really well for my
So
brain.
good. And it's so
Oh
good
yeah.
for upper, like we're talking about college, so like adults. That's how the company I teach for freestyle, we are also a flipped model. We teach
Mhm.
online. But yeah, the flipped model is so effective
It
if
really is.
students will do that prep work, right? You don't have to
Exactly.
watch the 10-minute video, for example. Like if we are sending you a video, if you don't watch it, it kind of all falls apart because we end up
Yeah.
having to teach you what you should have watched in 10 minutes.
Exactly.
But when a student like you sound very serious and, dedicated. Like I'm sure you were doing all your prep work, and it just makes more class time available to push and to do more and to talk and to use it rather than let's explain that this is the, oh, and this is the ah. Like, no, do that on your own, right? Like, were you
Exactly.
frustrated with when you had that first level though? Because personally, when I did Arabic at university, I was so excited they had finally offered it my senior year, and I was like, finally. So I knew I was taking it, and the summer before, I learned the alphabet. I learned all the letters, and I learned how they connected and how they changed. And I got into the classroom, and I loved this professor, but he took it super slow. Like we spent like a week or so. I don't know. We spent like more than a week, I think, learning the letters, and I was like, I already know this. I need more. So I don't know if you had that experience as well, since you had been working with the italki tutor.
I had for a little bit. So when we were learning hiragana and katakana, I already knew
Mm,
a lot of it, like pretty much all of it actually. I knew all of it. And like it didn't really take that long to actually get through that lesson.
that's good.
So and we weren't just learning hiragana, katakana, all that stuff. We were also learning the basics like greetings and
That's good. Yeah.
just kind of getting just the basic stuff in where like learning what the verbs were, not necessarily conjugating them yet, but just kind of that basic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
Tabemasu.
because she
Nomemasu.
Tabemasu.
Eat and drink.
There you go.
I think
There you
having a
go.
flipped classroom, you probably spent less time than we were. Like it was dragged on. And I was like,
Oh yeah.
come on, like we need to do something. I can't just sit here drawing like Aleph, Aleph. Like I want to do something with this. So yeah, I
Right.
think my teacher, it was not a flipped classroom. So I think you probably had a better experience because of that.
Yeah,
Even
it
you're
went a
yelling,
lot faster.
right? And you had maybe a higher level than others, but they could catch up by doing more at home. And then you were just
Hmm.
kind of like, this is cool. This is good. This is at my level.
Yeah. I was kind of coasting. I didn't really want to like overwhelm myself and just get ahead and do it wrong or something like that. So I was just kind of taking that semester just to chill because it was also my first semester of college, so I wanted to
Which is
focus on my other stuff too.
yeah,
So, yeah, it was a good just kind of intro into what I was going to start doing. And then the next class was when I actually started learning a lot more. And
yep,
there was, of course, like in that class, there were things that I didn't know. Like maybe a verb or two that I forgot about that I'm just like, oh, I need to remember that, something like that. So I still got something out of it and I would
that's good.
practice my speaking, all that stuff. So it wasn't just I was bored the whole time. It was
Hmm.
just a little slower than what I was used to, but we got there in the end just because I had studied beforehand. So, and then now I'm going into advanced like 3010 now and I'm like, I'm scared, but
No, don't be scared. How many other students are there that take?
so it started off with I think 3 different classes, so probably about 60, and
Wow.
then right, and then as
The
the
beginning, this
level
is
went
level
up,
1. Okay.
right.
Paper
As the
English.
level went up, it all started like going down. So now I just passed 2020, which is class number 4.
Mhm.
Now it's like 16 students, I'm pretty sure, and then it'll go down even more for next semester.
Right. That's
So
not bad
it's,
though. That's one class of 16. That's a great number.
yeah, and we're all technically about the same level, so we can still kind of converse in the same way, which is
Which is
really,
great.
it's really good.
Yeah. How much speaking versus writing do you guys do? Because again, those who don't, aren't familiar with Japanese, go look up the different hiragana, katakana. Those are the different writing with
Oh
plus the
Lord.
kanji. I mean,
Plus the kanji.
it's not the quickest, like English, you learn the 26 letters. That for like my kid's learning to read, like, okay, there's uppercase, lowercase, but that doesn't take all that much to learn. But
Mm-mm.
when you look at hiragana, then you have the katakana, which is used for the foreign words, and then there's all these kanji that you can't really know how to say, so they have to tell you in hiragana how to pronounce them, and then you're like, okay, now I have to know my hiragana because I can't pronounce kanji without knowing. I mean, it reinforces your hiragana, but like, how much reading, how much writing, and versus speaking?
So we kind of mix everything.
Mhm.
So a typical class would be like we learn a few new kanji and put them in context of reading. And then after that, we would hear a grammar point of some kind, and then we would practice speaking and making our own sentences based on that grammar point that we would
That's great.
learn. So really, we hit pretty much everything, like listening, speaking, reading, writing, because she would also play something over the speaker so we could
Mhm.
listen to it and hear how it's actually used and
Mm.
practice the intonation, things like that, because intonation is very important in Japanese. I don't know how many of your viewers study Japanese, but you can say something completely different by just emphasizing the different syllable. It's very,
Yeah,
very
and
weird.
people don't
But
know that. And
oh yeah.
everybody knows about Mandarin, or Chinese, as some people call it, but like Mandarin has tones. Everybody knows, okay, there's these 4 tones, super difficult to master, for
Oh yeah.
us learners. But people don't know about like the complexity. I've heard this, of course, I don't speak Japanese, but I've heard that like there's these tones and things that you can like, what's the word? I don't even know if tone is the right word, but like, I don't know if people have referred to it as a tone or something else, but yeah, like you're saying, the intonation is
Yeah, I think it's just
changes.
intonation. We don't really have tones in Japanese. It's
Yeah,
just
no,
5 pure vowels, a, I, u, e, o, and just the intonation of the syllables themselves,
right.
where
But
you're
people
like,
don't talk about how that can change the meaning, right? Which
right.
is basically as hard as a tone, right? If
Oh
intonation
yeah.
is changing, that's just as complex, but people don't talk about that with Japanese. But I've heard other polyglots and people at conferences talking about this, and I'm like, I thought like Japanese was maybe a little easier than Mandarin.
Yeah.
Oh, the
Really, just when you
misconceptions.
think about it, when you think about it, it's really not that bad. It's just training your brain to emphasize the correct syllable is
Mm.
really all you need to worry about, as
Mhm.
opposed to Mandarin, where I studied Mandarin for just a little bit and then I'm like, this is really hard. I need to not confuse it with Japanese.
Right.
So I stepped back from it for a little bit. But yeah, for Japanese, you just need to focus on the specific syllable in the words that you need to emphasize, as opposed to Mandarin, you're kind of, my only comparison is like Mandarin, you're kind of drawing a lot of squiggly lines with all of your tones or
Mm.
whatever, if you're thinking about it that way.
Yeah.
But then Japanese, there's just like the intonation for like a full sentence, just like you start at a higher tone kind of,
Okay. So
and
it's
then you
looking
just
at
go
the
down
whole sentence
gradually.
level. Yeah, it's more
Right.
the whole sentence where the curve is versus like Mandarin. It's like each word, like, well, this one goes up and
Exactly.
this one goes down and this one.
Yeah, exactly,
Every
exactly.
language has their complexity, but that's not one that people, I feel like, the average person who's not a linguist, people don't know that about Japanese. And I've heard, native Japanese speakers and learners talk about this, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Had no idea about that. So this is it's really interesting.
Yeah.
What's the easiest part for you? Because I mean, like you said, Japanese, Mandarin, these languages for us, not, native English speakers, or like native any language, that's not an Asian language, like it's intimidating. I've heard Koreans and Japanese, oh, the grammar is similar. So they're not as intimidated. It's their neighbor. They've kind of been exposed. But like the rest of the world, we're like, oh my gosh, this language is so hard. So give us something that's easy. What have you enjoyed, or what have you found to be very...
Oh, wow. Um, so it does take a while to get to a place where you are understanding the language and it's starting to click for you. So I don't want to give beginners just the little mushy gushy stuff of you're just gonna love it, whatever. It is hard. But once you get past the once you get past the getting used to stage, it really clicks in my brain specifically. I don't know how it will work for other people, but having the verb at the end of the sentence every time, it's very weird for native English speakers to get used to that because we always have like subject, verb, whatever.
Yeah, we're looking at it earlier on. We're looking for it. And we're like, there's all
Exactly.
this information, but I don't even know what we're doing with it.
Exactly, right.
You
So,
ball, what's happening? Oh, the verb.
right. Yeah, so for Japanese, since I've gotten used to it, having the verb at the end of the sentence is just very comfortable for me now, as opposed to like if I'm looking at Spanish, I'm trying to put like ser or estar or something like that at the very end, and I'm like, nope, that's not how that works.
Does not work. Yeah, so your brain is actually in Japanese mode.
Right. It's starting to get there, and I'm loving that, and I'm very, very thankful for that. But
That's
it's
very
starting to
cool.
make a little bit of sense just to like make the sentence from the end and then putting it like all the way through. Just be like, okay, think of what your subject is, think of what your verb is, and whatever other information you stick it in the middle.
Right. Which
And
is such a weird concept for us. And
it really is. But once you get used to it, it's comforting for me. I don't know why, but it just makes a lot of sense in my brain
where the
now.
verb goes, right? Like there's no
Right.
guess. Like it's at the end. Which I
Yeah.
think is so interesting for translation purposes. So the
Oh,
high
yeah.
school I taught French and Spanish at a high school in Massachusetts. And we had like this long-standing what do I want to call it? Just an exchange program. So every year, Japanese students would come to our high school because they're studying English, they're studying, the culture. And then every 3 years, we would send a group because we didn't have as many. We weren't teaching Japanese, but we had, enough students who were interested. Every 3 years, we took a trip. And we had this great cultural exchange, but I was thinking about it because obviously, we were going over, I actually got to go on the trip before my kids were born, which was so cool. Because they needed teachers who didn't have kids and commitments. So I was like, but yeah, it was great. And it was interesting when we were there or when they were here. So, Japanese, they're very formal. And we would have an assembly, and the director that came with the students would like give a speech, and then we had someone else translating it, and just the formality. But it was interesting translation wise because they always had to say the whole sentence and then they would translate, whereas like when you've heard like a other language being translated, they're sometimes kind of like going as they go, like whether it's ASL or it's like Spanish, they're kind of like yo estoy and I am, and they're like doing it like simultaneously, and we'd all be like waiting very patiently. We're like blah, 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 like this like 2 minutes, and they're like, okay, what? And then he has to remember that whole long sentence, right? Like, we're so thankful that you've invited us here. Like, it's not these short, simple sentences, but it's interesting because yes, the verb is at the end. So the person translating cannot translate until they hear the whole sentence, because they don't know to say we are thankful.
That's so cool.
It's like that's at the end, right? Like all the things in between. And so yeah, I just always was like noticing that when we were hosting them here or going there was a lot of formal things. We had to like meet the mayor, through the business card exchange. It was like very culturally rich trip. But yeah, there was just a lot of translation happening because we weren't expected to know any Japanese, because that's not, it wasn't an exchange program, a linguistic one. It was more of a cultural, and we had the tie between our two cities, like they were like sister cities. And it's such an interesting concept, right? Because we're so used to this automatic quick and it was like, nope, you gotta wait, the verb's at the end. So yeah, I just sat through a lot of speeches. But I find it really interesting. And other, it's not unique to Japanese, but I just hadn't been exposed. Like I think German also has it at the end, but that's not a language I've studied.
Right.
I asked you what the easiest thing about Japanese. What is the hardest? Okay, now pick one. I know there's probably a lot.
Yeah, there is a lot, but probably the first thing that comes to my mind is kanji.
Mhm.
Kanji is so hard. They kind of ease you into it, especially in university, which I really appreciate. They ease you into it. They give you like the number one, number two, number
Right, the
three,
super
which
easy
are
ones.
all like right.
Attention.
Those I'm just like, I like that. That's easy. Let's just stick with that. Like we could just do tally marks. I don't know. But it turns when you go to 4, it turns into a box and then with
Yeah.
lines in the box. It's
Yep.
just it's a lot. And then as you keep going forward and starting learning different things, whatever, it just gets more and more complex. There are so many different strokes that you have to remember. And like quick little misconception, stroke order does matter, but not as much as a lot of people say. So it can help you do it right, but if you're like me and I can just picture something and then just transfer it over,
Yeah.
I can usually do okay without actually remembering stroke order, but so that's
Do
more
they
for
teach
like
you though? They
traditional.
teach, yeah, like they want you
They
to go a
do.
certain order. Yeah, I can imagine
They
that.
do. They teach you, but they don't really stress over it. If you're actually writing the kanji,
And it's
they
correct.
don't like stress over it and just be like, you did this in the wrong order. So
Okay, now
just
there's
a
like
little bit of breather there.
that's good. Yeah, I mean, and they shouldn't. Like I'm thinking if my kid draws a T and does the horizontal before the vertical or the vertical, and then who cares, right? If they're drawing the T correctly, like we shouldn't nitpick so much on
Right.
a learner.
It's mainly just for like very traditional formal Japanese and
The
like
calligraphy.
sometimes right, calligraphy, exactly.
Okay, speaking of calligraphy, what is your favorite? I know there's all these different like arts, right? They have, like I was mentioning, the high school exchange. We were very focused on the cultural aspect. So we would have this culture night, and we'd invite the whole town. So like I'm thinking, the calligraphy, the origami, the different drumming, the flower arrangement. I mean, there's so many different like the tea ceremony. Do you have
Oh
a
yeah.
favorite that like is something that you're more drawn to? Because those are all very like
Wow.
culturally specific to the Japanese.
Right. Wow, that's really hard. Um, I've never I've never been to Japan before, but I'm trying to plan that trip soon. But
That
um
opportunity will come.
right, that's what I'm hoping for. I just
It
need to
will.
save a butt ton of money.
Well, and it's a far trip, but it's worth it. Just make sure you go
Right.
for a good amount of time because, like I said, it's such a long, tiring journey.
Oh yeah,
But
it
there's
is.
so much to see. Oh,
Yeah.
you're gonna
I
love it though. I mean,
do
you speak the language, so it's gonna be resonate on a whole nother level,
I
right?
hope so, yeah. I
Anyone can enjoy it,
love
but it's when you know the culture more,
Oh yeah,
much
definitely.
as you do
Yeah.
more. Mm.
Yeah. I really do love the fashion in Japan. It's just so cool. And like I just think that the kimonos are just so pretty. I
Yeah.
want one.
Oh yeah.
I'm definitely buying one when I go to
Mhm.
Japan. But I think that's so pretty. And then they have some
What about those
amazing music
sandals?
festivals. Oh
Oh,
yeah, that too.
are
It'll
those
make me taller.
comfortable? I mean,
I
yeah,
have
that
no
yeah.
idea, but it'll make me taller, so
Are you
that's what I
short? Because
care
I'm
about.
also short.
I'm very short. I am 5'1". I'm very
Oh my
short.
God, I have you beat at 5'3". Wow. I'm the tallest person in the room. That's like a first.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
used to
those
it. It's
sandals don't
okay.
look comfy though. I mean, yes, they're big
No.
platforms, but watching, we actually saw a geisha walking and it was like, it doesn't look comfortable. What is the summer? There's a summer outfit that's not a kimono. That's, I can't
Oh.
think of the word. But
Oh, I don't remember what
I
it's
was like, oh, I
called. I know
want
what
one
you're
of
talking
those. Yeah,
about.
it's like a little more comfortable. Kimono is very
Right.
formal and beautiful. It
It
is
really
beautiful
is.
though.
It's
What are you
gorgeous.
talking about when you say, sorry, I'm stuck on this fashion because all these
Yeah.
images are popping into my mind of like the crazy baby girl or like crazy color. Are you thinking of that? Like I'm thinking like crazy
Oh
Tokyo
yeah, definitely.
girl
I
style.
just I just think it's entertaining. Like personally, it's not really my style. My style is just plain black, but I
Me too.
love just what right. I love just looking at it and seeing like I've seen like a bunch of like Japanese fashion shows on YouTube and stuff, and it's just so cool to look at. And
It
I'm
is.
like,
It's
"Ooh,
fascinating. Yeah.
it
Yeah. Yeah.
really is."
Again, another very specific look, right? Like you see that and you're like, oh, they're Japanese,
Oh yeah.
right? Okay, so you mentioned the music festivals, and of course, this is
Uh,
your line of work, hopefully. So tell us about
it's
that because I know
amazing.
nothing.
Oh yeah. It's so cool. So they put a lot of emphasis on their music industry in general. So like that's why J-pop is so big, things like that.
Mm.
Um, but a lot of their shows in general, like the audience, I've noticed, like this is kind of a culture thing also. The audience is a lot more calm
I was gonna
than
say, yeah, like
in
listening
America.
attentively,
Right. Yeah. And they're just like,
paying respect.
exactly, exactly. It's very entertaining just to see the difference. Like, I would feel bad just because I'm a crazy music fan, so I would be screaming the lyrics to everything, but people would just be staring at me the whole time. I just kind of feel bad. But it's just really cool just to see that difference.
I
And
bet the
then
artists notice that though. Like if they're touring in Japan, the same group, and then they come over here and they're like, "Whoa, all these crazy Americans are singing the lyrics," and
yeah.
right?
It
That's got to be
it could
interesting for
be.
them.
It could be. Like, I mean, there are still like some big concerts and things where in Japan they are
Screaming.
loud and they're cheering and they're screaming and everything, but nothing to the level of Americans, like,
Mosh pit.
storming the stage and whatever, mosh pit, yeah, stuff like that. It's a
Yeah.
very noticeable difference, but it's kind of cool to me.
Mm.
But and then some of the productions like in Japan are like have bigger budgets sometimes. So like they've got like all this pyrotechnics and all these lights and everything, as
Ooh.
opposed to in America where it's a little bit more toned
Yeah.
down in some ways. Yeah, it's really cool. They have a lot of unique things.
Mm. Yeah, I've never even looked at a concert happening in Japan. I wouldn't even know to look at that. In your classes where, you're doing music business, are you looking at cultural differences, or is that just something on your own personal time that you've delved into?
So I do have a class that I'm taking next semester that is specifically for like international entertainment.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. But otherwise, I usually just kind of research on my own.
Mhm.
We just kind of focus on specifically like the Nashville country music industry and a lot of things, which
You've got a rich
is not really right. It's not really
cultural.
for me. But
Mm.
yeah, I usually research different things for Japan and South Korea, things like that, that I'm actually more interested in on that side.
Mhm. So tell us a little bit. So obviously you're very interested in Japanese, minoring in it, but you've mentioned that, Korea also you're interested in K-drama. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about, are you studying Korean?
I am. I am nowhere near the level in Japanese.
Oh,
So I started Japanese a long time ago, and then I've just now started adding Korean onto that. So I'm very beginner, but really K-pop kind of got me into it because when I started switching my major to music business, I'm like, let's look throughout like the global music industry, and then K-pop happened, and then I got hooked on Stray Kids, and then everything just kind of went that way.
mm-hmm.
So
That's
yeah, the
great.
moment I heard God's menu, I was hooked. But it's all right. So I started learning Korean a little bit ago, and
Mhm.
it's so cool. I'm enjoying looking into that industry and everything. I've got a couple other groups that I love, but Stray Kids is
Mhm.
probably the best one for me. But
Okay, good
it's
recommendation for anyone who doesn't know. I'm sure everybody
yes,
knows at least one K-pop group. But
probably.
and did
Yeah,
you find it
it's very cool.
easier, harder? Like how are you finding it different, if you're comparing? Obviously you know more Japanese, but like for example, Hangul is so much simpler, right? It's equivalent with like
Right.
having an alphabet. Like whereas it doesn't have these three levels of hiragana, katakana, kanji.
Right. Yeah, the writing system definitely is easier than Japanese. The pronunciation is a little harder,
Yes, I
but
was gonna say that.
not
I found that too.
right, because yeah, for Japanese, it's just like a pure vowel and just a consonant with that.
Mhm.
So kaki, ku, ke, ko, something like that. But if you're wanting to say something in Korean, it's kind of in between the K and the G
G.
sound.
And then there's the
Yeah,
double
something
one.
like that.
And like
Mm-hmm,
these double
exactly.
letters, the double K, double T, and like they're hard to pronounce. I find, and I did Korean first, but I find
Mm-hmm.
it harder to pronounce. And even like practicing, I'll do Duolingo, and they'll be like, try again, and I'm like, really, that wasn't good enough.
Right.
Like, what am I saying wrong? Whereas like Japanese, I feel like it is just easier. I don't know, the syllabic, just I think it's vowels actually that are complicated, like like all these like sounds in Korean that are just kind of hard. Plus
Right.
I've noticed it's almost, I guess, like how you write it is not always how you say it. There's all sorts of letters that
Exactly.
change. So you're like, okay, I know these letters, I know how to pronounce them. And then you hear someone say it and you're like, you changed the pronunciation of what I'm seeing,
Right.
which must be how people feel with English, right? Like English is so
True.
not transparent. What we write is not what we say. And I find that more with Korean than I do with Japanese. Japanese is like very
Definitely.
pure, just like Spanish, right? You write what you write is what you say. In Korean, I'm
Exactly.
like, why did they pronounce it like this? Why does this happen? So yeah, I don't know, I found it much harder pronunciation. I
Oh
thought I was
yeah.
picking the easier. I was like, oh, this is only has Hangul. This is going to be easy. And then I was like, oh no, it's not easier.
Yeah, I've been the same way. Like the difference in the vowels, like you said, like
Mm,
Japanese, there are 5. That's all you need. The pure vowels, that's
yeah,
it. But then Korean, it has the pure vowels in there, but then there's kind of like,
this in between aw, like they write
yeah,
it
exactly.
HBO, and I'm like, aw,
Right. It's
what is
it's like
this?
a more open O as opposed to a closed. Like
Yeah, it's
I
not
will
the
say,
pure one, but the
right. Exactly. I will say something that I learned from being a music education major. I had to take an English diction class
oh boy,
where like we had to learn how to speak English correctly. And basically it was learn the rules and then throw them away,
yeah,
which was
forget them.
very weird. But something I learned was IPA, International Phonetic Alphabet.
Yes.
And that has helped me so much with Korean
Oh really?
because there's a different for the open O or the closed O, like the aw or the O, something like that.
Yep,
There's a different symbol in IPA for that.
of course, I love
So if
IPA.
I'm writing, right, if I'm writing an IPA, it makes it easier to pronounce it in Korean.
Right. And that's also
So,
why I think it's so important to learn the actual script.
oh yeah.
Because yeah, the ah is like, well, the A is a line with a vertical line with a horizontal in the middle, and the ah is just the
Hmm.
opposite of that. It's like the line is on the right and the vertical line the other way. But yeah, it shows that it's more open versus the horizontal on the bottom with a vertical coming up, like the O. Oh, ah.
Right.
But yeah, vowels, I think vowels make it harder. And same with English. I think we have like 12. Like there's 5 that we write, A, E, I, or U, but then we pronounce all these weird vowels and we have these diphthongs, like, taking linguistic classes, like you learn like even the word I is like a
Hmm.
combination. It's not a pure E and it's not an ah, it's I.
Hmm.
And I'm like,
Right.
wow, English is like really complicated. Like I never, you really start appreciating your native tongue the more you study linguistics or the more you study another language. And a dictation
Exactly.
class, wow, I mean that I feel like we all could use that. But when
Yeah,
we
in
only
some
speak
way.
with natives, we get really like lazy and used to the way we speak. And then, I teach, English, and I'm like, wow, I really need to speak clearly and slowly and not say like, the a typical like learner, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, no, what you doing? Like the
Which
whole
exactly.
it's hard to teach that, but like they do need to, there's like a give and take. Like they need to learn to recognize that and like maybe start pronouncing things more smushed. But at the same time, as their teacher, I need to kind of also move towards the middle where I'm not just smushing all my words and hoping that they follow
Right.
along.
Yeah, I understand that. I have a few Japanese exchange students that come to my school and I'm friends with them. It's a lot of fun. And I've started speaking English a little bit more slowly, but then also it kind of switches and I have to speak Japanese kind of slowly to make sure I'm saying it correctly.
Mm,
So it's not just my native language that I'm trying to practice. I'm practicing
100%.
both. So,
100%. Yeah, me too. When I teach Spanish, like I need to make sure it's clear because I'm teaching
mhm,
Spanish 1, right? I can't.
right.
Oh, for sure. Well, that's really cool. I mean, I'm learning
Yeah.
so much. You're making me want to go back and be an undergrad and study languages at university, but I know it's a lot of work, right? It's not all
Yeah,
fun and games.
true. Yeah,
Well,
I am enjoying it though. I love Japanese. I started with the Romance languages and then I just completely switched to the Asian languages. And I'm like, we're just gonna put those aside for a second.
I think that's pretty common though, because in the US, that's usually the first step, right? Like we all
Definitely.
get introduced to French or Spanish or maybe even Latin or like that's usually the first exposure unless you have a home language, unless you have, family somewhere, some sort of connection or a friend, or if it's not already in your family structure or your friend structure, like that's usually the first language. So but I think a lot of people, I mean, I remember I had friends that were studying Japanese and they were just super gung-ho, like the people who wanted to, like, and they would be doing all their work and I was like, wow. But there is a fascination, I think. Actually, one of the guests that the episode hasn't released yet, he worked in Korea teaching English for 7 years, and he talked about this kind of like superpower. You just feel really cool when you can read and write a different script, right? It just kind of gives you this like extra boost. Like, yeah, I can read, you know, like Spanish, like, okay, casa, like that's great. But when you write the word in like, you know, Jeep in Korean, like, wow, that's like, it looks so much cooler. Like I only wrote the word house, but you feel it's so much cooler because it's like a different script, right?
Right.
Yeah,
I feel the same way.
Oh, 100%. I think everyone listening who's studied a language that has any other script, like you just, it's really neat. And, you know, I wish kids were exposed to even just different writing systems. I try and show my kids, I'm like, look at this language. Like I'll show them like something written in Arabic. I'm like, this is also a language. Like I know you're learning your ABCs, but like, imagine like this, just to like open it up to their minds. Like, there's not one way of doing things, right? I think it's really important. All right. Now, I always ask to, well, I've forgotten a few times, but I like to ask for my guests to teach us either a word or a phrase. So I would love one in Japanese. That'd be really cool.
Ooh, that would be great. Let's see. Ooh, I have one. You could say just, I can speak Japanese.
Okay.
So,
私は日本語が話せます。
Yes! Yes!
Dabbling.
Yes, that was right.
Well, you say it now because your pronunciation's probably better.
Yeah. Also, a little tip for anybody who's learning Japanese or whatever, if you're speaking in context or anything like that, you can take off watashi wa sometimes, just kind of
like
drop
Spanish.
that off, because exactly, yeah, you can drop the yo in Spanish too, just to be sure like people know that you're talking about yourself, so you can always drop that. So so for me it would be Nihongo hanasemasu. And that's kind of with the intonation too. You kind of start higher. Nihongo hanasemasu.
Yeah. See, that's the little things that I've never been taught or told, but it's really cool. One that I really like that is super like cultural is the itadakimasu. Like,
yeah.
And people are like, nobody's translated it for me, but it's what you say before eating, right?
Yeah, it's basically just you're thankful for the food that you're about to eat. Basically, that's not a direct translation,
exactly.
But that's
like
what
nobody
it really
can like
means.
give me like the exact translation, but I know it's always like
right. Yeah, there's not really a direct translation in English because it's such a cultural thing. It's just kind of what you would think. Just like what was it? Gambatte. Like how people say the translation into English would be good luck.
Yeah.
But they don't really say
force or strength. I forget what that was.
Right, like it's basically go do your best. And it's not really good luck directly translated because they don't really use luck in Japan.
It's lost in translation. Yeah.
Right, it is. So like gambatte just kind of translates to good luck. That's just kind of the way it kind of works. But it's really interesting.
And those are the things you learn when you're like, you have to do the culture, because like, yeah, it's not even the exact translation. And then you kind of talk about what the words actually, like this part of the word actually means this, and the situations you would use it in, right? Like that could also be different, which is I think why they're translating to good luck. But it could be different, right? There could be other circumstances, or like who you can say those things to, right? There's just so much that comes into that. Oh, my other favorite word in Japanese is kawaii.
Kawaii.
Cute. Everybody like, you can't not know that word because it's just it's everywhere. And like, I love how cute Japanese culture. I not even to stereotype. Like I was there, the news was being broadcast, but there was like cute little marshmallowy people like on the news. I was like, what is happening? Like, is this like the 6 o'clock news? Like serious? But or like the weather was like coming on, and it was like these cute little things. It was just amazingly like so different. I was like, this is amazing. And plus the house, each of us teachers, we were housed by another teacher in the school. I didn't say we went to Hokkaido, so the northern part,
Oh yeah.
where our sister school is. And I was housed by an English teacher who had 2 little kids, and they were like 3 and 1 or 4 and 2. They were super little. So like they also had like a program on for them, which was just like mind-blowingly cute, right? Because I mean, if the news was cute, you can only imagine how cute a show for a 4-year-old would be.
Oh yeah.
And I, didn't understand, but I was just like watching with my mouth like, oh, what is happening? I love this.
Yeah.
And she would
I
talk to
love
me
it
because she
too.
didn't understand that I didn't understand her, the one who was older who could talk. And she would just talk to me like, okay, this is an adult. Like, I don't look Japanese, but she just was like, adults understand me, so I'm gonna talk. Bah, 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 bah. I was like, I don't know what you're doing. So cute. Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, it was like
I
one of
love
the best
that.
trips. Yeah. Well, I'm hoping you will get there soon,
I hope so.
sooner or later, and that you can stay a bit so you can really
I
enjoy
hope
it.
so.
Oh, it's Japanese. I mean, I gotta learn that language. I have a book. I posted on my Instagram. Like, I'm gonna learn these
Oh yeah.
hiragana, katakana because they're not clear in my mind. I know you said like
Right.
it's easy for you. I'm like, I haven't dedicated the time to making it, but
Yeah.
I've done like the Pimsleur, which is like why I know these
Oh
little
yeah.
phrases. So I always
I have
focused on
that too.
speaking. Yeah, I've always like, well, if I can speak and I can say,
Right.
eigo ga hanasemasu ka? Like, can you speak English? That's what I said a
There
million
you
times.
go.
Or like, nihongo ga hanasemasen. I
There you
don't
go.
speak
Yeah.
Those are my go-to sentences, which is why
It works.
yeah, I got I mean, they could obviously probably tell that I couldn't, but you never know what foreigner has spent a lot of time studying.
True.
But yeah, I focused more on the speaking, and then I'm like, I don't know, the writing frustrates me, but one day
Yeah.
it's on my bucket list of things.
Right. As long as you learn hiragana, you should be okay. Just and some basic kanji, you should be okay, because a lot of the time in Japan, in like actual use of Japanese, they don't use super complicated kanji
Oh,
just
good.
in everyday life,
Mm,
just because a lot of children will read some of their stuff and they don't know the super complicated kanji yet,
right.
because they learned that in schools. They actually dedicate that to
Mm-hmm.
finish like through middle school, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some in high school, but
Wow.
usually don't let the kanji scare you away from
Actually,
doing something like
that's
that.
great to know, like how long, right? They're dedicating X number of years of their schooling. Those kids are still learning up to age 12, 13, something like that, that they're still learning. So this is not something we should expect ourselves to just, I'm going to pick up all the kanji. Like, no, no,
No,
you don't need to. I think that's
no.
great because it takes some of the pressure off. I actually wanted to ask about that because I haven't
Yeah.
been exposed to that much Japanese and even less Japanese writing. So like, I'm curious how much, if you had to give like a percentage, or if you've heard some statistic from your teacher, like a normal book, or like I don't know, an article or something, like something you're going to read online, like is it like 80% hiragana and like 20% kanji, or more or less? I don't know, I'm just curious if that's even been studied.
Really? Okay. That's an interesting question. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think that my teacher has really said anything about that, but there are, just from the reading exercises that we've done and things like that.
Yeah, just a guesstimate. It doesn't have to be
Right. Really, I think it's probably about 60 to 70% kanji,
Oh,
and then the rest is hiragana. That's just in
Tanner, you've
just
lost me.
typical.
Just kidding.
No. A lot of the kanji isn't the same though.
Okay.
Like, it's not all of these different kanjis and everything. It's a set, like maybe 100 to 200 that they use on a daily basis, things like that.
I guess
Just
I'm forgetting, like
basic.
even basic words like meat is a kanji, right?
Yes.
Like that was in my Duolingo. Niku, or I don't forget what it was, but it was like that technically is a kanji, but like,
Yeah.
and like fish and like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so there's like a lot of very common words that are written in a kanji rather than written out in hiragana. So okay, that makes
Exactly.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of the things that you'll just be learning in general, like the verbs for like to go, to speak, to
Yeah.
eat, things like that, those are all kanji. Of
True.
course, there are a couple like little hiragana like thrown in there, like tabemas has like the kanji
Tabe.
for eat, and
Yeah.
then be is in hiragana.
Oh,
So yeah, so
interesting.
it's just
And then the
right.
mas.
And then the mas, of course.
Right. It's a
Um
mix. Yeah.
Right. There's a mix in there. It's just getting familiar with like the main 200-ish kanji that we use. And most of that is really, I'm pretty sure in Genki 1. I have it with me, so I'm trying to remember.
Oh,
But
genki desu ka?
yeah. Genki desu ka?
When you say
Exactly.
genki, I'm like,
I do use the Genki books in my university lessons, and I
I've heard a
love
lot of
them.
people say good things about them.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're amazing. If somebody's looking for Japanese resources, Genki books are amazing. I'm in Genki 2 right now. There's like 1 and 2. I finished Genki 1 in 3 semesters. Well, actually, technically 3 plus the last chapter.
Do you think someone could
So
self-study with Genki, or is it like
definitely.
yeah? Okay.
There are a lot of different resources with Genki that you can use. There are Quizlets everywhere. There are there's actually an app. I'm trying to remember what it's called, but it has the actual listening exercises that are in it. It's like
Oh, that's great.
OTO Navi is what it's called. It has like the Japan Times on it, something like that. It's like I think it may be like an $8 subscription for like 4 months, something like that. It's really affordable. So it has the listening activities, and then it has some drill practice, workbooks, kanji practice, stuff like that. It's like all inclusive, has all the different things that you could possibly need. It's fantastic, and I absolutely recommend it.
Awesome.
But
it's so
yeah,
funny.
when
I
you're
was talking
learning,
with a student this morning, and she's of a certain age. She's older than me, and we were talking about how when you used to buy a book, you got a CD, and she was like, "Yeah, there wasn't any CD in the book." And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's like," and she's like, "I found the website, like everything's online." I'm like, "Well, it's technically
right?
better because they can update and like new things can be added. Whereas you bought that
Yes,
CD, you got those 10 tracks, and that was all you got."
exactly.
But we were just kind of lamenting the days of like getting CDs when you would buy a language book.
Yeah. Yeah, I still get the CDs sometimes. Like I also use just for my own
Have a
personal
CD player.
practice. I don't either. It's in my car. That's all I got. For my own practice, sometimes I get Japanese for busy people. That's another one. They have 3 levels on that. So there's beginner, intermediate, advanced. I just finished the intermediate book, which is crazy.
Wow.
So I'm starting the 3rd one, the advanced one. So
Nice.
we'll be working on that. So just a little bit of new things. And it just kind of, it's really cool to have 2 different books and resources to use, because some of the kanji that was in like the 3rd book of the busy people book was in Genki 1.
Yeah.
So you're kind of experiencing both at the same time, and it's just like, oh, I recognize that kanji, cool. So it gives you a little bit of moment of clarity, so it's really cool.
And refreshes, right? We always need to see
Exactly.
things more than once. And it's a good point that like different resources, what someone finds maybe easy, this is level 1, another person will find harder. Yeah, I just think, that's kind of a common, like depending on who made it, every teacher, every person who's creating these resources is going to classify, oh, this is a beginner topic and this is more advanced, whereas it could be the opposite to you because you know so much about that advanced topic that you already know those words. Yeah, it's super interesting. But yeah, the more resources, the better. So if you have any others, you can always send them to me and I will put them in the show notes. So if anybody is learning or wanting to learn Japanese, try it, right? I mean,
definitely.
You never know until you try. And as you heard us, it's such a cool, fascinating place with so much culture, and the language is not impossible, right? So Tanner's already like, her brain is thinking Japanese mode. Right, which is such a big accomplishment, right? Like that you see your brain, like, oh, how do you know, like sometimes you catch yourself, how would I say that in English? And like it's easier to say it in the other language, and you're like, oh wow.
Oh, it so is. I had a moment when I was at dinner with one of my friends where I could not think of the English word.
Mhm.
We were talking in English, everything was
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
She's one of my American friends, so we were just talking normally, and I wanted to say something, and I'm like, why can I only think of the Japanese word?
What
Like
was
I
the
don't even
word? I'm curious.
I think I think it was like the word creepy, which is kimoi in
You know it.
Japanese.
Wow, that's pretty.
Yeah. So, I
But your
was
brain
about
was
to
only giving you
say
one. Yeah.
I was about to say kimoi, but I'm like, wait, that's not the right thing. What is the word in English? So I had like a whole crisis, and she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I can't speak English now. What is happening?" That was the first time that ever happened to me, and I'm like,
Oh,
"This is so weird."
it's a really weird experience. Yeah, where
Oh, it's so weird, but it's
you
also
spend
kind
so
of
much,
cool
it's
where
super cool because you've spent so much time of your day, which means your brain is thinking in Japanese, right? Like you're doing so much that English was turned off for a minute,
oh yeah.
which is
Yeah,
cool.
it's cool, but it's also terrifying sometimes.
We've all had it though. I think
Oh
everyone's
yeah.
can relate to that. Like, oh, and I've seen memes, I've seen, reels online where it's like, oh, you can't think of the word, you're speaking even just in, let's say English, I can't think of the word in English, and my brain searches and I'm like, dang, I can't even think of it in any of the languages. Like, what in the world am I trying to
Right.
say?
I've
You
done
just feel
that.
like, what is happening in my brain right now? It's
Mhm.
like on the tip of your tongue. Actually, that happened to my son the other day. It was really cute. Like, he had the word on the tip of his tongue, but he doesn't know that expression. And he was like, it's right here. I just can't say it. And I'm like, I know. Because like seeing his little brain trying to explain what he was trying to say, it was super cute.
Yeah.
It's like, yep, there's an expression for that. It's on the tip of your tongue.
It's right there.
Yeah, but he doesn't know, that expression. It was just super cute to see. Like the physicalness of him like trying to pull this word out of himself and not succeeding.
That's cute.
Oh man. Yeah. Oh, kids are a blast. All right. Well, thank you so much. And yes, anything else that you want to send, I will put in the show notes. But it was
Yeah.
such a pleasure. I mean, we could sit here talking about our love for Japanese. I don't even know any more Japanese than I don't speak Japanese, but I could sit and talk about it all day because I just find
Oh
it
yeah.
such a beautiful.
Always.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And yeah, is there anywhere that we can reach you online if people want to get in touch?
Yes, I have a language Instagram page, Tanner Languages. I also have it on Twitter as well. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me. My DMs are always open for just some language fun, whatever. So
Yes.
just
Yes,
let
we're
me
all
know.
language nerds here, so expect to get
Always.
some feedback there. All right, well, wonderful.
Yes.
Such a pleasure to have you.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.